years now, the Raptors have been solid, well prepared. If you're going on a picnic, it's the Raptors who would have brought along that first aid kit because you just never know, gosh darn it. But danger? This was not a team that did well with danger. When things got hairy, when the pressure of a playoff series ratcheted up, there were rarely any bravado buckets. Sometimes there were barely any buckets at all. And when the man who for more than a decade reigned as the most dangerous player in the league came knocking, well, the Raptors couldn't really even bring themselves to answer the front door some of the time. But this time, in this postseason, all that has changed. Remember at the very beginning of the playoffs when Toronto lost to the Orlando Magic at home and we all got the here we go again Game 1 ghost came out to mess with players' heads? The Raptors simply stared back with them, laughed, and reeled off 4 straight. Or in the second round when Toronto fell behind to the Sixers and all 7 feet, 250 pounds of Joel Embiid was airplaning around the court. It was loud and intimidating and maybe would have been enough to make the very respectable Raptors of years past pull up the covers over their heads. But this year's edition charged right back into the abyss and beyond. Of course, it helps when you have one of the 5 best players on earth leading that charge. It's not a coincidence that now, as Toronto has a guy who isn't afraid to step up and take that last-second dagger game winner, the rest of the Raptors have gotten a little bit braver too. We saw it over the weekend in Game 3 of this series against the Bucks, as all that talk swirled that not just Toronto's season, but their whole future was on the line. And the Raptors answered by following Kawhi and fighting, not just through regulation, but 2 overtimes. Then in last night's Game 4, those other players were so full of bravado, they actually led the attack themselves. They'd have to, really, with Kawhi clearly nursing a leg injury. Several times throughout the game, you could see him wince or cringe in pain, never more so than in the third quarter. So first, check out the dunk over Giannis, because it's fun to watch, right? This angle here, even better. Nice pass from Marc Gasol, by the way. And Kawhi uses his left so he can beat Giannis before he fully meets him at the rim. But then watch him come down on that leg. That is not good. Fortunately for Toronto fans, this is no longer a team that sees something scary like its best player hurting and wilts. Instead, the rest of the Raptors kept churning. The bench actually showed up, with Fred VanVleet hitting 5 of his 6 shots, including some clutch threes. Gasol was active and engaged. Kyle Lowry was everywhere, not only conducting the offense, but contributing to it, knocking in 25 points, including all 10 of his free throws. And even Drake took part. Yeah, that is him rubbing Coach Nick Nurse's shoulders, because of course he is. And look, it's not like Drake has ever been short on confidence in a dicey spot. I mean, the man once talked trash to Kendrick Perkins, which is not a good idea. But at least this time, he looks more in line with the swagger of an entire Raptors team that laughs in the face of danger, Lion King style. Now, does swagger alone get you to the NBA Finals? Of course not. Attitude does not beat the presumptive MVP 4 times out of 7. But I do know Toronto can't beat the Bucks without that attitude, and that they're now headed back to Milwaukee feeling brave. No first aid kit required. So, Byron, I want to know about Kawhi, and I want to circle back to that headline, because now that it is a best-of-3 series, it has become even bigger, right? How concerned are you about that little limping that we saw there in that bit?
I'm extremely concerned. I mean, we could see this man is playing hurt. You know, you can just see it sometimes in his face. But he's such a warrior that he's just going to go out there and continue to play as hard as he can. He's going to continue to bring it like he does every single night. But if I am on that medical staff, on that bench, on that coaching staff, I am worried about how much longer can he take this. He's playing heavy minutes every single night because he has to. He's putting his team on his back because he has to. But at some point in time during the year or during this series, it's going to catch up to him. That's what I'm feeling, Ramona, and I'm hoping it doesn't. But, you know, you can only take so much. And right now, after that dunk, you know, the way he was kind of limping around, it didn't look good. It looked, you know, about that way a few games ago. It wasn't bad, but it seems to be getting worse and worse each game.
Well, and I was wondering also that we've seen 2 lefty dunks, which are amazing.
Yes.
But is the reason why he's dunking like that because he doesn't want to push off of his right quad?
Yeah.
And every time I see that, I'm kind of wondering about where his health really is. But I think you have to trust him, right? Like he clearly has been good at sticking up for himself and his health. And I know he's a warrior and wants to play. But if he's not able to go, he's certainly proven to us that he will sit out, right?
Yes, no, 100%. I mean, look, the training staff in Toronto is renowned as one of the best in the league, right? And they've certainly taken great care of him all season. This is the time to go. And by the way, no one has been, I mean, Of all the players in the league right now, Kawhi is one of the ones who's elevated in the playoffs over and over and over and over again. So we know this feels to him like his time. Part of my level of concern, though, is that I don't even know what this injury is. He says he's fine. I don't think it's on the injury report. Even when people talk about it, they say leg.
Yeah, it's like a
hockey injury, right? Lower body, right?
He just doesn't look. I mean, he looks like an old man walking out there sometimes. He's hobbling around and he doesn't look right, and he's not trying to conceal anything. I'm concerned just because this series is every other day, and you think it's going to go 6 or 7. It's obviously going 6.
It's definitely going 6.
And he's not going to have that much time to recover for the finals if they were to make it. And so you've had load management all year, but there's no managing this load right now.
And you know this, Ramona. You know, when you get to this point in the playoffs and you're playing for a championship, as much as he's depending on his health and he's talked about his health, he's been very honest. This is the time you'll start lying as a player. You know, you will tell everybody you're fine because you want to play, you want to compete, and especially when you have a chance to get to the NBA Finals.
He does. I do think, I mean, first of all, the miles per game rank I think is super interesting. That tells you how much he's running around the court, right? So that means that it's not just that he's playing all the games and he's playing more minutes, that those minutes are so much more active and hard on his body.
Both ends.
It's an interesting paradox because this is not a guy who's never been to an NBA Finals before. So, and he's a guy who's hitting free agency this summer and definitely wants to make sure his health is okay.
Right, that's what I think is almost the most fascinating part of this is that, you know, as we mentioned, like he's sat out before when his body is not right. He's not sitting out right now.
So
and if you're Toronto and the franchise and their fans, even if this guy's not staying, like he's giving you every ounce of himself.
Everything.
That's a big level of commitment.
It's interesting though for the Bucks to keep an eye on too, because as you said, I mean, we know this series is going to 6 because it's 2-2, and for them to just try to push it as far as possible, the more days are on the court, the more that this young Bucks team maybe has a chance to push Toronto a little bit.